Hey everybody, it's Rob Scheer, the founder of Comfort Cases and the host of Fostering Change. You know what? I want to say thank you and welcome to season 7. Season 7, I can't believe it's here. Do me a big favor. I really want you to listen. I want you to comment, and I definitely want you to subscribe. So I hope you enjoy this season as much as I've enjoyed our guests. Okay, so I have to tell you, I'm really enjoying this back to once a week podcast. I have talked to some amazing, amazing people, some people who are really, truly my friends. But before we get started, I want to remind everybody, we are 2 weeks out before our gala. I heard that there's actually just a couple of seats left. So again, head on over to comfortcases.org/gala. It is going to be a fun-filled night. I cannot wait to hang out with my friend Jen Lilly from the Hallmark Channel. I can't wait for the big band to play and, just all the people that are coming together to support kids who are entering our foster care system. I am so excited about my next guest. The fact is that as we go through this journey of life, for those of us who are what I would consider alumni of foster care, you meet people along the way, people that you truly do connect to. There's some people that I've met along the way, and a lot of times it's continuous to blame the system. But then there are people I met who is my next guest who actually, they're not blaming the system as much as they want to see the system change. And that's exactly where my path has always been. As a kid who's been in the system, aged out, was homeless, have dealt with everything, now I've adopted 5 kids from the system. We need more voices and we need more books like this. That's exactly right. This amazing book, Taking My Voice Back, Healing What Broke Me. The fact is I am very, very upfront about this. I was broken. I'm still broken. The trauma that I suffered as a kid in the system, I will carry for the rest of my life. It's just how I deal with it. So, without any further introduction, because I want her to tell the story because she is so amazing, I welcome my friend, Dr. Danisha Keating. Welcome to Fostering Change.
Thank you for having me.
I am so, so excited. I'm so excited. I'm like, you are just someone, I follow very few people on social media, and that's not because I think I'm bigger than anybody, because I don't have many followers. I do that because I really get involved in the people that I follow. And you are one of those people that I follow that I enjoy every single time you post. You just, it just like sometimes I feel, and again, you're my friend, so I feel like you just know when I need to hear what you need to say. So first of all, I want to say thank you for that. But I want to dive right into this. The fact is, you actually came into the foster care system when you were in high school. I would love for you
Yeah.
to tell us about that.
Yeah. So it was originally I thought like I didn't start dealing with CPS until I was like 13, 14. But I recently got my file last year and found that there was another file that they said, hey, this goes all the way back to when you were 2. And I'm like, what? My mom was in the foster care system. And then our whole life we heard about it. Like, oh, don't do this. You'll be put in foster care. Don't do this. Don't say that. They'll put you in foster care. Are you really wanting to go to foster care? Like, that was just always this conversation. But then in high school, it was 3 days before my 16th birthday. I was at a color guard competition and I came back and was getting text messages. And I mean, when we had text messages, it was like pay by the text.
Right.
And
Yeah.
people were, why are the cops looking for you? Where have you been? And I'm like, what is everyone talking about? Because apparently the night before was a football game and the cops were looking for me to pick me up. But I had spent the night at a friend's house and went to the color guard competition on a Saturday. My mom knew where I was at, but she, I guess, didn't tell people where I was at. But I come back and it's nighttime and I'm putting all my stuff in the guard room, picking up all my stuff, like trying to call my mom, be like, where are you? Come get me. It's, 8 o'clock at night. And call my brother-in-law and he's like, where the heck have you been? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Why am I getting yelled at? And he's like, your mom was arrested. The kids are put in foster care. We've been looking for you and you stay where you're at, don't move. And I like hid, like I ran from the phone in the band room to this little closet in this room we called the color guard room. And I shut the door and I was like, I can't leave. I just can't leave. Then the knock comes on the door, like maybe 15 minutes, and my brother-in-law didn't live far away. So I was like, okay, it must be him. And the band director's like, hey, there's someone here for you. And I'm like, cool, I'm out. Like, I feel like I'm running from the cops. And a friend of mine's like, we're gonna hide you. Don't worry. Like, we'll protect you. You can sleep in the guard room. And I'm like, yeah, sure. This is my new home. Like, I'm good. And I walk outside and it's two CPS workers. And that one of them was he was trying to be as gentle as possible, and the other one was just a complete jerk. And like mocking me the entire conversation. And I got mad and I was just like, why? Like, I didn't do anything.
I
Why are you to get me? I don't understand this. And I'm, 15, almost 16 at this point. So I learned to stand up for myself. And I just kind of go off on him. And I'm like, on Monday, we're going to be back in school. And he goes, oh, no, no, no. That's not how it's going to go down. You're moving schools. We already have you enrolled at another high school. You are going to be separated from your siblings. We were put into three different homes. There was eight of us. So they had to put us in three different homes. There just was not enough space. And he's like, they're all going to their own school. You'll be lucky if you see them again. And he's just like laughing. And the other guy goes, dude, stop. Like she's trying to process this. And I just lost it. I cussed him out. I was like, how dare you? You don't understand what I've been doing. Like, I've been raising these kids. Like, my mom's not really in the picture anyway. And he laughs at me. And a band mom pulls me aside and goes, we don't talk to people like that. And I was like, I don't care. I'm done. And she's like, no, no, no. And I'm like, and she goes, we don't do that. I said, but what do we do? And she goes, we pray. And so she sat down with me and she's like, I don't understand what else to do except for pray with you. And she prayed, and then my brother-in-law walks up, and it felt like the longest time of my life. And it really was like 15, 20 minutes, but it felt like it was hours. And then he's trying to talk to them to be like, can I bring her to our house? Like, we already have two of the others with us. Like, please let me just take her with us. And it was no, it was not allowed. And so I'm told I have to get in this van with these two strangers, and they take me to my house. They give me a grocery bag, and say, "Go pack your stuff. You have 5 minutes." And the one thing that was hard for us is that we didn't have electricity. Our parents didn't pay the bill. My dad like wasn't allowed to be in the house because of his abuse, and then my mom wasn't actually paying the bill, so we had no water, no electricity. So it's nighttime and you walk into this dark house and you feel the coldness of the situation. And I just remember like grabbing stuff and then just like, okay, I'm done. Completely forgot my backpack, completely forgot like everything. And then I get put into this foster home and I walk in and she goes, oh, you missed dinner. So breakfast will be at 8 o'clock in the morning. Um, and we'll go over the rules right now. And I hadn't eaten. My CPS worker did not drive by food to get anything for me. And I just this foster daughter that was there walked me around and showed me all the rules of the house. Like, you can't have the water on longer than this. You can't have the lights on longer than this. You can't do this, can't do that. And I went and I sat in my bed and I could hear one of my brothers crying in the other room. And so I go in and comfort him. And the foster mom comes in and she's like, hey, girls are not allowed in the boys' room. I don't know what your intentions are with him. You need to get out. And I'm like, he's like 6 or 7 at this point. I'm comforting my brother as I do every night, like, just leave me alone. And she's like, if you do this again, you're gone. Like, just know that. I'm letting this be the exception. But tomorrow you will not do this, or I will call your CPS worker and make you leave. And I was just like,
how
so
many other kids were in the house that were in foster care? And I'm sorry about crying. I
with
mean,
this
it
house, there was two other kids that were not related to me, and then I was with two of my brothers.
okay.
And they purposely put me with them because the one of them was like 6 or 7 or maybe like 8 years old. But it was kind of like a big kid with the little kid.
Right.
And it was just heartbreaking because I just remember it being so cold. Like, everything just felt so like I was numb and
Sterile.
I was so upset. But it was just like there was no kindness coming from anybody that I ran into. And that was so difficult because that was like the thing that I just was like, I just need someone to look at me and be like, it's gonna be okay. And outside of that band mom and one other friend that was there that night, there was nothing. It was shut up, be quiet, stop talking. If this happens, you're gonna get moved. And I'm like processing all of this chaos in this moment, and then trying to be like, don't show your emotion because there's your siblings are involved, and they need someone strong. So it was not something I just was like, here, let me cry. I was like, nope, stoic, no emotion, guard up. I'm ready to attack and fight. And I'm being told like if you do any of that, you are going to be moved and you will never. And like they kept the CPS worker kept saying like over and over and over again from that night on, like, oh, I'll adopt them out. Don't do anything. You're going to get them moved. Like he knew it wasn't a threat to get me moved, but he knew that if he threatened sibling movement, I would freeze. And
Right.
so he had said that if you do anything wrong, I'm letting you know now. If you try to run with them, if you try to do anything, we will move them and you will get arrested. And I'm like, what did I do wrong? And this was all night one. Like, these are the
I
rules.
mean,
And I'm just like,
it's
5 minutes
just,
in,
as
it's cold, it's horrible.
yeah, as people are listening to this, and by the way, again, you want to talk about taking her voice back. You got to read this book. Denisha, I have to say, it was hard for me to keep back tears as I listened to you. And it's because, I know that pain. I know that sterileness, that whole, the coldness, the way, CPS people talk to other people and talk to, it's like, and again, I'm not trying to beat up on social workers, by the way, but guys, we have got to look at this system because your story is so similar to so many other people's story, and we're not looking at it. And I think a lot of it, and again, I really want us to dig into this. I think a lot of it is because we don't have people with lived experiences who are making decisions. We have people who are looking at a file. And by the way, the fact that here you had a file that started at the age of 2,
Yeah.
okay? Start at the age of 2. I have not shared this with any. This is the first time I've shared this, but um, if those who've read my memoir, I kind of wondered where the social workers were. And come to find out, because this was a neighbor, and was still getting a check, social workers just didn't check and nobody came. And even though they knew I was living in foster care, these strangers that were, you know, no one checked on me. And so when I turned 18 and became homeless, there was nobody there. I think that, kids like you and I, we fall through the cracks. I want to fast forward at 24, you actually become the guardian of 5 of your siblings. First,
Yeah.
I want to know, where'd you get your grit?
Um,
Get your grit.
my siblings, because like I remember even like this we backtracked, but I remember when he took me, like they took me that day, I was like, I have to get my crap together. After acting as I'm the adult, I'm like, I got to get my crap together so that I can take them on. And so I got to this point where I'm like, I got to get out of school, I got to finish school so I can get a job so I can go and be ready to take them. Because they wouldn't, that was the whole conversation. I was like, look, I'm already raising them, just give them to me. And they're like, you're 15. And I'm like, I've
You've
been
been raising
raising them
them
since
for
I was
years.
8. Like I like mean when I mean raise them, like getting up with them in the middle of the night, feeding them every 3 hours as infants, then toddlers, like then doing their homework with them and all of this stuff. So at 24, I remember getting that call, and it's so weird how the system works is basically in my state, they allow family to step in before CPS can. But what they don't tell you is that if you let yourself step in before CPS does, and put them in foster care, you don't get any funding. So there is no funding available. That's being misled consistently in my state where they were like, oh, we'll get you licensed and da 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 da, and like you'll get all this money to help you. So I was like, it's not about the money, but it was like, okay, I can do this
Yeah.
because they're going to help me. But at 24, a church actually called me that my siblings attended at and said, you need to come get them before we call the cops. Like, we're giving you a chance because your sister told us to call you. And so I like ran down to this church, grabbed 2 of the 3 youngest, already had 2 living with me, had like just with like that last 2 months of them kind of running away at 18 and 19 years old. And I get this call and I run down to that church and I'm like, okay, where's all 3 of them? And they're like, well, one of them went away with their stepmom. And then it was like, oh my God, like, where are they? Found that they had gone back to the house. I had to call the cops because the stepmom was not letting me in the house. So I had to call the cops, wait for the cops for them to go get my little brother, put him in the car, and then this is like a whole scene where it was like she said, "Come back tomorrow and you can get their stuff." And when I came back to the house the next day to get their stuff, and she said, "Bring the cops. I don't want you here by yourself." So the next day I had to go back and everything was in black trash bags. And it was on the lawn. So there was no even respect of letting us go into the house, them getting what they want. It was just, I think, and it was literally, I think this is theirs. So I threw it in a bag and put it outside. Don't come in the home. And I picked up, I think, 15 big black trash bags of stuff, packed it in my car, went to my little 500 square foot apartment and started unpacking the stuff with them. And most of it was thrown away because it was like, okay, that's not their stuff. That's trash, literal trash in this bag that they scooped up and put in this bag. Clothes of my dad's, like stuff that wasn't theirs. And I just kind of sat back and I was like, this feels so just gross. And I've never felt like I felt like even at 24, like we were running away. That's what it
Right.
felt like. But this, ever since I was 15, there was that I have to get it together to go get them when the time comes because this is happening again. Because that was the whole pattern of my family was we go through this every 10 years. Like
Right.
that's just what we do as a
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
It just is so wild because every time I look back and the file I got last year actually kind of shows just how much people didn't report, and there's so much redacted that I am trying to currently work with an attorney to get it on redacted because it's just like how do we have this much stuff that we can't see and I'm the victim?
Right.
And it's just what I can see. I'm like, there are so many people who didn't even report it.
So many
There's so
red
many
flags.
people, like stuff where you're just like, how did we go this long
Right.
without this? But it turns out because the missing piece of it is it's not just that it happened. My dad was very heavily connected with organizations as president, um, and he worked with them, worked with cops, worked with CEO or with DAs, worked with sheriffs and police departments. Like he was very heavily connected with schools, and we were really firmly we know people just were like, he's such a great guy, like.
Yeah.
And they ignored the neglect and the abuse and the I'm hungries and coming in with holes in our clothes and our shoes. And it was, oh, he's just trying. Their mom, she's just trying. And nobody ever actually looked at us. They looked at the parents and just said, well, they're just doing the best that they can. But over and over again, my heart was, I'm tired of this. And it kind of came in high school too, where I went to a friend's house for the first time because my mom kind of just stopped caring about me. She's just like, either if I was home, I was being attacked physically and verbally, or I was out of the house. And so I was like, it's safer to be out of the house. So at 15, I would house hop every 3 days at a friend's house. And it was always somebody different. So people wouldn't catch on. But I went over to one friend's house and her dad cooked a steak dinner. And I'm like, what is this? And he's like,
Uh,
not chicken. And he's like, it's steak. And I'm like, what is that? And I remember tasting the steak and the mashed potatoes, and it actually tasted good. And I'm like, I want more of that. I want more of this. Like, that's weird. And then I looked at the prices and I was like, ooh, steak is not cheap. So, okay. But then that kind of kept stemming, and I asked him questions like, did you go to college? Like, what is college? And he's like, okay, let's talk about this. He's like, you're so interested. And I'm like, okay, but what did you do? And he was a firefighter and then like at the top person of being a firefighter, I forget what their title is. But he kept like just like keeping that conversation alive.
right.
And he
Right.
start community college. It's way cheaper. Do this and that. Like, go take a couple classes, see what you're interested in. But it all started with him just being willing to talk to me
Talk to you.
as another kid and not being like, I think he could tell something was off
Right.
because he was always like, you ever need food? Let me know. I will send extra with my daughter to school. Like, oh, you need clothes. And, some people might look at that and be like, oh, that's a red flag. It's like, no, I think he knew but
Right.
he didn't want to overstep where he's just like something's like he couldn't put his finger on it, but he could be like something is off with her life
Right.
that she's here multiple times a month. And he just was like, I'm going to love on you while you're here. And
Right.
that
I love it.
started changing that course for me because there was so many parents in high school who did that. But I don't think I think they just thought I had absent parents,
Right.
but no one ever actually saw the house
Right.
until police came in. So it started very early of like, I'm done with this.
You know,
I'm done.
it's so crazy that you said that. I remember when my memoir came out and I went on a book tour and I went to my hometown. I hadn't been back to my hometown since 18, when I left for the Navy. And I remember as I was sitting there signing books, I heard a woman say, "Robert, I always knew you would amount to something." And I looked up
Mm,
and it was a teacher. And it was my teacher that used to bring food, and she'd always had extra food.
yeah,
And she's sitting there and she's crying. She had read my book already, and she said, "We knew you were homeless." She said, "But we didn't know what to do." And mind you, this was back in the early 80s. And,
yeah.
she said, "We just didn't know what to do." And it was so weird because I actually wrote about her in my book because she was that
Oh
one
my
teacher
gosh.
that took time out just to
Yeah,
make me feel that I mattered. I
yeah,
mattered. I have to ask you this, and I know everybody, and I don't want to give away a lot of the book. Everybody, I'm going to tell you, there's going to be a link right here for you to purchase this book. I say this, I'm telling you. Um, Definitely one of my top five books of the year. And it was, I love the whole thing that you put the Disney in it, and you know how much I love Disney. You and I have that
yeah.
connection. I love the songs, and I love just everything about the book. As dark as some things, the bringing the
Right.
light, and I think that that's very important. I love how you were very realistic. And that to me is being real and that you didn't sugarcoat. So many times I've read so many memoirs, by the way, over the last 7 seasons, and so much is sugarcoated at times. And I
Yeah,
love the fact that you didn't do that. And that's like what I did in my book. I just ripped that band-aid off and I wanted people to know, yeah, he put a cigarette out on me.
yeah,
Yeah, my foster parents were not what you expected them to be. And by the way, nobody said anything because they were high members of the church, the Latter-day
yeah,
Saints. And so, um, you know, I've got to ask you this because you talk quite a bit about church.
yeah.
You talk about, I know your beautiful daughter Harper, you guys go to church, you know, people ask me all the time, how did I get through what I had to go through? And I always would tell them, as weird as this may seem, it was my faith. It was my faith. I don't know exactly what's out there, but I do know that my Heavenly Father actually had a path for me. And so I chose the path of not blame, but to make change, where my siblings, and I'm the youngest of 10, they chose a different path. They continue to do the blame. What are your siblings doing?
With, I think that that's such a hard thing because a big part of our abuse was the spiritual side of the abuse, using faith against us,
Same
using
here.
the Bible specifically of like, here's this verse that allows me to abuse you. So I think with some of my siblings, like they've kept like, okay, we go to church, we do that, but we're very open, like there's red flags, we see them, we run. A few others have been like, hey, I just can't dig into that right now because when I read it, all I hear is our parents' voice.
Right.
But most of us, there's a few of us that have started to talk through like healing and like therapy. We've all kind of found it at our own pace. But I think there is still a big part of us sometimes where we go, mm-mm, not talking about that. Nope. And I was the first to go through all the therapy and the first to kind of get out and realize how bad it was, without pushing it off and not dealing with it. There was a few that ran before me. I'm the fourth oldest of 11.
Okay.
So the three olders, like, they were like, we're just not talking about this. But I was the first to dig into therapy. So I became that person where they're like, stop talking about this. Like, we don't do that. We just leave it alone. We stop touching it. But now, 15 years later, 20 years later, they're joining. And December, this last Christmas was the first Christmas where I cried because I was like, I have been praying for this for decades. But I looked around my front room and most of my siblings were in the house talking about like, hey, this is an addiction I've had. I was like, I've had an addiction to food. Like, and I mean unhealthy addiction to candy, to where it's like I'm stressed, I'm eating candy. I'm, this or that. And they're like, well, I've had alcohol or I've had this other thing. And we just kind of sat around. It was like a big AA meeting at my own house with my own siblings. And we were like, wow, this is weird. And I sat back and I'm like, this is what I've prayed for so long. So I want to encourage people like you will have some of your siblings just completely like I've had so many family members that are extended that are just like, we don't talk to you because you're talking about it.
Yep.
You do your business. You can share your story your way. Just don't bring me into it. But it's so intertwined. So when we do share our story, it does call some of our own wounds out. And that's what my older brother had said to me was he's like, sometimes you piss me off when you post. And I'm like, what did I post that made you mad? And he's like, no, it's not what you posted, it's that you posted and it triggered something in me and it made me mad because it was like, ooh, haven't dealt with that yet. But then there's times where he was saying that I posted something that he realized he didn't act for somebody else. But I'm like, bro, you were like 10, 12 years old. Like
Right.
you child, like you shouldn't have been the one to be like, let me go help you. But he said he's like it really sometimes can trigger me in that of like I haven't healed from that and you have. And so that's where each of my siblings, we've handled it differently. I think a lot of us ran to trying to numb it first.
Right.
Then I've started to see like more. And even my husband has said it. He's like, I didn't expect that conversation. And I'm like, I know, like this is wild. But it is hard because as much as I know that faith and therapy can work and you can get on that other side and not be bitter and
Right.
angry and want to literally sometimes feels like it wants you want to kill people because you're just like, I'm so mad at the world. I have had to realize I've had to step back and let them process in their time because it actually, if we push healing on somebody too much, it could actually break the brain where
Right.
it's like you're bringing up memories and this is where I want to caution anyone who wants to write their story. A lot of the times we start to call family members and be like, hey, relive this with me. Hey, come on, let's talk about this. But we don't give them someone to process that with after we're done.
Right.
And so then they open that book, they read that book, and they go, you exposed my abuse. How dare you? And that causes extra conflict. So I would always caution, like, be mindful in what you share when it comes to somebody else's abuse as well. So don't share for them. And so this is where I'm like, look, I'm not going to share their dirty stuff that they're going to,
I so
but
wish that we were friends when my memoir was being
it
written.
breaks relationships. And I
It,
see it over again. And I'm
yep.
like, I wish we talked it because I've learned it the hard way.
Yeah.
And it all stemmed when I had wrote something for school and I posted it on, MySpace blog at the time. And my older sister went off on me and it caused years of pain. And I'm like, okay, so I have to figure out how to tell my story. And this is why it's taking my voice back because not only has like family said you have to stay silent on this, you can't talk about this, but then the system literally in my file said you are not allowed to share this. If you do, you could be tried with a misdemeanor. And I'm like, this is my story. And they're just like, you can't share the content in the files. So I can't share pictures and be like, look, here's the proof. And I see so many people doing that. And
Right.
I'm stop. But I'm also an overly cautious person. But this is where each of us handle it differently. We see that that's why some people will go toward an addiction. My husband says the analogy where it's like two kids grew up in the same house. One becomes an addict of the father who had alcoholism, and the other one doesn't touch alcohol. And both of them said it's because of my father. It's like that is such a true statement. It's like
Yes.
we both can look at the same situation and handle it completely different.
Yeah.
And there are siblings who still blame, like they can't move in life because they're
I
like,
have them. I have
no, like
siblings.
that happened. And I'm like, me and my sister actually sat down once and I was like, I'm exhausted that we still have the same conversations at Christmas,
Yeah.
15 years, 10 years later. And she's like, oh my God, me too. And I'm like, this is so bad. But she told me something that has stuck with me is when I share my story, she said something when she was when I took her in 2015. I asked her, I said, what do you want me to share? Because we were attending church. And I said, what do you want me to share? And she said, I would just really like to walk in a room and know that what I shared is what I shared and that people don't know stuff about me that I didn't share. And I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah. So I tried not to share anything that if my siblings walked into a room, that someone couldn't say your sister told me this.
Right, right.
It
It's their
you
story.
you
It's their
told me
story,
this.
you
And
know.
that's what I want to leave for everybody is like it's so complicated when more family members are involved. But out of respect for people, I will only share my stuff. But and when people ask like, well, did your siblings go through that? That's not for me to share. I don't know their details, and I will not share their details. But
I
we all
love you. I love you. I love this book. You know, I hope those that are listening, those that are walking the journey and, you know, they'd really take this to heart because I can agree with her 100%. I have lost relationships because I wrote about other people in my memoir. I felt that I did a disservice by telling my children's story when
Mhm.
before allowing them to tell their story.
Mhm.
And so I have had to carry that burden, which I've never said to anyone before until now. But, you know, I have to tell you, Danisha, you're amazing. You're amazing. And I am lucky that I get to call you my friend. This has been the most amazing episode. I'm telling you guys, there's so much more. There's so much more. Get the book. Let's read it. This isn't going to be the last time her and I are going to be talking because I will tell you, she's coming back because we have a lot more to talk about on how to change the system. You know, we talked about the things that, you know, are breaking within the system. But when we come back the next time, we're going to talk about how to change the system because I believe the system can be changed. I believe that we can do better than that we are doing today. And we owe it to the kids who are in the system. And let's remember and let's not forget kids come into the system because of choices other people made. Other
Yes.
people made. So, with that, I want to say thank you. Thank you for writing this book. Again, everybody, the link is right here. Please buy it. But do me a favor. As authors, we write our books for you to read our story. But there's nothing that is so flattering to us for you to write a review, to write a review. So buy the book, write the review. And until next time, this is another amazing episode of Fostering Change. Take care.